Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exposition Table. I'm one of your hosts, Joe,
And I'm the other version of your host, Dan.
and we are talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Well, mostly Scarlet because that's the one I played, and Dan hasn't played Violet because...
I decided not to engage in giving the Pokemon Company money because I feel as though the product is not at a point where I should give money to it. But maybe Joe will change my mind with this conversation that we're about to have because he is going to be talking to you guys about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'll be giving some of my feelings just based on what I've heard, what I've seen. I've kind of stayed in the dark about like actually seeing like candid footage of the game, but I have heard a lot of reviews and I've sort of seen the lead up to it. So yeah, this is gonna be a bit of a Joe-led episode tonight, but I will make sure to give all of the horrible commentary you expect from me. Don't you worry, I will make this night worse for all of you.
Alright, so, yeah, I recently beat this game about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago. I'm relatively fresh on my experiences, although I'll pretty much say right from the outset that I have not experienced everything this game has offered. I'm not much of a collector. I don't really plan on partaking in too many more raids.
How can you review the game if you don't have a 5-star trainer ID?
Yeah.
You're not even a real gamer!
Like, I did the main quest. That's just how I play these games now. So
what did you complete in the game, Joe? Did you, before we get into the nitty-gritty about your opinions, what did you experience out of the 3 main quests? If you want to explain a little bit about your journey through those.
The game kind of just expects you to do all of them in order to do the last story segment.
Oh, cool, the Sonic Heroes approach?
Yeah, like, while they do show off 3 stories, you're effectively railroaded into doing all of them. And the one really optional thing is the actual academy.
Oh, so it's just like life. School's optional.
Like, yeah, like after the first couple hours, which are honestly kind of dreadful, the game just kind of opens up. It introduces the 3 main story beats. It says that you have to make your own journey, but you're doing all 3 of them, which are the Victory Road, which is, the 8 gyms, and the Champion, and Elite 4. There's the Titans, where you go around fighting giant Pokemon. And then one where you participate in Team Star Raids and attack a team of outcasts and delinquents. And each one kind of follows a different set of side characters along the way.
Oh, good, Joe. You don't have to Wikipedia brown it. We're good. Most of us have played the game. Most of the people listening have played the game. I only really need the smallest bit of flavor text for the context. But I'd rather hear more about your experience with the game before we get into talking about which route you took and all the other jazz. First things first, which starter did you pick? And are you happy with the starter you picked?
Alright, I picked Sprigatito, partially because I do like the first form. Second off, because I was in a group chat with you and another friend of ours. We all picked a different starter.
Yeah, very funny. I picked the starter and then wound up not actually opening my game.
Yeah.
It was a very strange weekend. That was a very strange weekend, and I don't want to talk about it. Maybe if we ever do late night shows.
Had that not happened, I would have picked Fuecoco because I do not like Sprigatito's evolutions at all.
Well, I was gonna be picking Fuecoco, but since I'm probably not playing this game until next year, unless you convince me, I'm so sorry for making your game worse.
Alright, let's be fair here. Like, my starter's like my 4th most used Pokemon at the end. It wasn't that big of a deal.
It's just your guy who you use through a bunch of the key fights, and he's just kind of there. He just kind of does things.
That's the kind of thing. You just use your Pokemon when they're useful because the experience share system just kind of lets you have bench warmers.
Yeah.
Um,
So you'd say that your choice was fairly mid?
it was pretty mid. Then again, I'm not too hot on where their starters evolved, which is kind of a shame because I actually really like their first forms.
Oh, that's been me for the last couple generations now, is I really like their starter forms, but then they evolve into things I'm not that big a fan of.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to be fair, they're the most marketable plushies, so it makes sense to get those right.
Yeah, it's just
No one's buying plushies of the mid forms. And since they don't really make figures or anything anymore, even though the final form should be the most marketable. I don't know. There have been a lot of misses lately on final forms.
yeah, it's just kind of doubling down on things I don't like about modern starters. Yeah, I like the grass cat, but I'm not a big fan of Magician Catman.
I don't even know what the final form of the cat looks like. I'm just gonna take... I think I might have seen like 1 or 2 pictures of it, but I don't have a clear view of it. I will say, I am pretty bummed I didn't pick Quaxley. Or I won't... I don't know, maybe now that I have time to consider. Basically, I was gonna pick Fuecoco, and I've seen its line, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't hate it, but I think something about the color scheme on Fuecoco's final evolution is like just kind of odd. The overemphasis on the white.
Skeletor just
White.
kind of looks over-designed, to be honest.
Yeah, it's got like the weird white body with the red. It looks like another Pokemon from an earlier generation. Like, it looks very distinctly like another Pokemon had that color scheme. Oh, it looks like that weird Yeti claw crab a little bit.
Abominable.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, the color scheme reminds me of that, where it just was off.
Yeah, like at first I was all about Skeledirge in terms of final evolution design, but the more I look at it, the more it's like I feel like there's a little bit too much clutter in its design.
Yeah. Which leads us to the king.
Quackleval.
Yeah, Quackleval.
I
Yeah,
don't even,
Quackleval. I actually think the dude's pretty cool. I like him a lot.
I don't even think it's a bad design. It just feels weird having it as a Pokemon.
I mean, it would be weird if this was earlier, but we're kind of so far in with Pokemon that look like this that honestly it's not that strange. I understand you don't like Pokemon that look too much like human beings or like they look like they have too much autonomy. You know, that Pokemon looks like he files his own taxes.
Yeah. I just can't seem to get over it.
I can understand that, and I think on a principle, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but being that we've had this for so long now, I kind of just have accepted it, only out of... I'm not going to let that interfere with if I think the design is good, and yeah, I definitely think this is the best designed out of the 3 of them. I think it's the standout, which is weird, because usually the water doesn't tend to be the most standout one out of the 3. Usually it's... I think it's Greninja, although... I don't know, usually the fire ones usually seem to make the biggest splash, so it's cool to see that, yeah, this one, they really put in the gumption for. So, I don't know, I like them. I mean, out of the 3, which ones do you think is the best?
I don't think I like any of the final forms, to be perfectly candid. Like, I'm not enthusiastic about any of them right now. And yeah, that's just...
You don't like Quackwavel, and you know what that makes you?
Oh dear
A
God.
person who doesn't like Quackoval,
Yeah, exactly.
and nothing else. Not liking a Pokemon design doesn't mean anything else about you.
Who would infer such a thing? Well, that's kind of unfortunately been a recurring theme, is that there have been more Final Form starters that have been misses and hits for me in like the past like decade.
Yeah, I think at some point we should maybe talk about the starter designs, and maybe we can even do a tier list video if you guys like that idea. Hit the bell, subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know all that stuff that you want us to do.
Indeed.
But yeah, no, definitely. I think ever since Gen 5, I feel like there's been a big sort of decline in the quality of the starter final evolution forms.
Yeah, they just feel a lot less universal in their appeal, and they just feel like really weird niches.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's not enough to have a frog monster. No, it's got to be a ninja.
I mean, is that really a big deal? I mean, I get the point of the starters is they should be simple, straightforward designs, clear cut for the kids to understand is kind of it. But I don't think the frog being a ninja is like a bad thing.
It wouldn't be, but it's all they've been doing.
Damn, we've had 12 frog ninjas in a row.
Like, the humanoid Pokemon with a job has been, like, the standard for a long time now, and it's gotten very old. Like, I'll say, for as divided I am on the starters, I do think that I generally say they're a big step up from Sword and Shield starters.
I think out of all 9 of the starter Pokemon lines, you know, first, middle, and finals, I think I only liked 1 out of 9 of, or maybe 2. I only like 2 out of 9 of them. The other 7 are all bad.
Yeah, like, I straight up don't like the Gen 8 starters at all. Like, there might be, like, a form that I do kind of like, but if we're talking final forms in particular, nah, they really missed me last time.
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily there's more than just your starters. Once you got your starter, though, let me hear about that excruciating tutorial.
Oh, okay. So, start of the game, you have your natural, like, barrage of text, which, alright, I guess I'm gonna have to make another tangent here, because this aspect of the presentation just kinda hits you like a truck. This game is very dialogue heavy and doesn't really give you the tools to make that feel smooth ever.
You're gonna have to elaborate on that a little bit, because we all know that there's certain issues with Pokemon's presentation, but you're gonna have to make it more clear what you're referring to.
Okay. Pokemon games in general, especially as of late, have gotten a lot more dialogue, but it's still exclusively text-based, despite having cinematography that would suggest otherwise.
Despite hiring voice actors for official trailers and promotions to be the likenesses of those characters who appear in the game.
This is something that really pissed me off about Sword and Shield in particular, and they're doing it again. So, if you're not gonna have voice acting, can you at least not pretend like you do? Can we not, like, zoom in on characters' mouths as you just read their text?
Yeah, it's really awkward when that happens. What, you don't like having a whole musical number being performed by a man on stage but not hearing, like, singing because there's no song?
Yeah, alright, so Sword and Shield, okay, yeah, I guess I'm dunking on Sword and Shield a lot already. That's
Look,
largely...
a lot of things that Sword and Shield did, Scarlet and Violet, carried forward. In spite of whether or not they improved a lot of elements, which eventually you are going to talk about the things that Scarlet and Violet did do better.
Yeah,
but you got to start off talking about the
I'll
rough
talk
patches.
about this first stuff you'd notice, and unfortunately, it's mostly bad at the start.
It leaves a very bad first impression, it sounds like.
Yeah. So...
if you want to elaborate on the presentation. Or do you want to just flap your mouth and not actually have noise come out of it?
That's kind of the problem. Is that, like... Okay, Sword and Shield start off with this big speech in front of a large crowd. The crowd has generic voices, but the person making the speech doesn't. And they still try to act like they have voice acting, they don't. Like, okay, so there's a gym leader that's a rapper, there's a gym leader that's a VTuber, and they don't have the voices. How do you make characters like that and give them scenes that necessitate sound design and then not do it?
Yeah, it's very weird they would pick those as careers for these gym leaders to have, when it's very evident that they're, like, going to have a part of their identity is hearing their sound, hearing how they speak and how they infer things. And isn't like one of the villains also like musically inclined? Isn't she like on a whole musical stage or something? Like the Team Stars? Not to jump ahead a little bit, but isn't there like a rock music punk theme to that as well?
Yeah, like Team Stars, they feel like concert setups. Why do we keep doing this?
It's like it's like they want to do this, but then they keep being told no. Maybe they think if they keep doing it, that eventually they'll get away with being able to do something. Like if they keep pushing the Pokemon Company and keep putting pressure on them, like, we've done all this music stuff, you're gonna have to let us put the voice acting in, and then they're still like, no, we're not doing it. It's like, if they look, Pokemon has like this universal everybody appeal. I'm gonna take a small, brief tangent.
Yeah, go ahead.
So something I've noticed is that Pokemon has been trying to really be like Disney in that sort of a way. And if you notice for Disney, every time a Disney movie comes out now, or anytime anything Disney comes out, it has voice acting for basically every language. It has dubs, it has audio commentaries. If I go on Disney Plus, there's like 17 different languages I can watch the mediocre live-action Lion King remake in. Which is great, because that Japanese dub is actually a banger, and the only way you should watch the Lion King remake is in Japanese. Anyway, actually the French dub's not bad. Now I'm getting really off topic here. Alright, the point is that it's universal, and the point is that they don't want you to think about the fact that this is a foreign concept. They want you to just experience the magic and not have a dissonance to it. Other franchises don't really care. Persona, it's from Japan. Call of Duty, it's an American franchise. You think about that when you're experiencing it. Pokemon, you know it's from Japan, but there's never really been a barrier for entry for the audience. Okay, in the 90s and early 2000s, where every game in Europe had like, you had to fight to get a good translation of your games. I apologize to you Europeans, who I've heard had a very rocky road in the earlier generations of getting good localizations, and the Chinese gamers who only just got, localizations in the Switch generation, as far as I know. Point is that now Pokemon's at a point where they are reaching as many demographics as possible and having the games come out in all languages so that, there's this universal appeal to it, like Disney does. So they start putting voice acting in. I think that they are now convinced they would have to do it for every language so that there's no dissonance between different players in different countries. I personally think they should just settle on 2, maybe 3 dub languages max, and most people would be fine. But I think that would cause some kind of weird identity brand dissonance that they're not comfortable having. And I think that that's like the big thing. I might be explaining this kind of poorly, but basically they want their audience to be able to sort of have that, magic, sort of bringing them into the experience. And if you're, a kid who lives in, I'm trying to think of a country that doesn't have like a formal dub for, let's say you live in India, for example, and you can read, one of the other languages there, but they're not gonna have the voice. You're gonna have to assume it's the language of a different country. Or, let's say you live in France and they only give you the English and the Japanese dub. Well, now you're listening to an English dialogue while you're reading the French, subtitles, and there's a dissonance there. It doesn't pull you into the universe the same immersive way that before, when you had text, it didn't matter because there was no other immersion. There was no other, what you have there. And also, keeping in mind the fact that most Pokemon get localized names in every region. If you hear, have voice acting, for example, and they say, let's say he's like, oh no, there's Jigglypuffs out there. And then, they hear Jigglypuff, but then they see Roundoro, it's just, again, like the dissonance there, where it's like you're establishing a difference in language. I feel like it took a very long way to sort of explain this, but it's basically, I think that's why it's not going to happen. they shot themselves in the foot by trying to create this magical Disney-esque experience to their brand. It grew... I mean, that's part of the whole Pokemon as a brand has grown too rapidly and too fast, and now they have to preserve where they're at, but that's a conversation for maybe a different day, or maybe even just later in this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to be like Disney, which means that they cannot break the immersion of the experience to their player, which means they are not going to dub it unless they dub it in every language you can read. So,
yeah,
I think they should
they should
figure
recognize
out
that they're
how
not,
to...
either they're not doing it at all,
yeah,
and so they stop directing scenes like they're gonna do it, or they sort this out.
How do other franchises that don't have voice acting in the modern age handle this? That are AAA? Which is an oxymoron because you can't even think of one.
Yeah, they even like middle of the road franchises mostly have voice acting now.
Yeah. It's like Pokemon's the only one not doing this besides other Nintendo franchises. But the difference is other Nintendo franchises either don't have that much story, or you're playing a specific character and not your own personal avatar. You know, Animal Crossing doesn't have voice acting. They don't act like they have voice acting, but that game also, despite being $60, doesn't look like it's trying to be a AAA game. Mario has smidges of voice acting, but it's mostly through text boxes. But you're also playing as Mario.
And there's
You're
also
not
just,
playing...
not a lot of dialogue to begin with. So
yeah, but like when you talk to like people in town, or you talk to like toads and stuff like that,
yeah,
it's
but
text boxes that appear.
Yeah, but it's always like quick.
Yeah, that's actually the thing. They have quick text boxes that go really quick, and they usually have little sounds like, you know, which is more voice acting than Pokemon has. I wish everyone in Pokemon went.
Yeah, like, that's the problem. Is that, yeah, with other franchises that don't have voice acting, they're either like old school indie, or they just don't have a lot of dialogue to begin with. So the lack of voice acting doesn't waste much time.
Yeah, and usually the dialogue's quick. Pokemon doesn't do any of those. It's not
wordy.
quick, and it pretends to have voice acting. But even the dialogue speeds aren't very quick. Even if you set the speed to fast, if you set it to mid.
Like, once I talk about the combat, like, I'm really going to dig into this game's text.
I promise he's gonna say something good eventually, guys. He's gonna say something good eventually.
Okay, so let's transition into back to the opening hour.
Or being more wordy than the introduction to the game.
Yeah, so first thing you notice is lag. And, unfortunately, that never really goes away. Like, it's still, like, able to be enjoyed, but you really start to feel like this late PS360 era, just, like, a lot of games in the late Xbox 360, PS3 era generally started to lag a lot because they're really hitting the limit of their respective consoles' fidelity.
That was the last generation where lag was particularly prevalent. Once we got to the PS4, Xbox One era, they really started to figure out... I mean, there were plenty of games with lag, but the majority of them, you know, they figured out performance and speed and processing power, and then obviously where we are now, with PS5 and Series X. But, you know, 360, PS3 era, a lot of games. You think about them, it's like, Christ, they were laggy.
They were more preoccupied with looking good than performing well.
Yeah. Back when, yeah. It was a different time. And then the Switch is like going back in time to your childhood. But not your childhood of the 90s. It's like going back to the Xbox 360 era.
Yeah. Like, the first thing I said about this game to other people is, it feels like a remaster of a good game, but the remaster was botched, so it just kind of runs bad.
Yeah.
If I were to really say this the most succinctly, I think it's a pretty good game that just doesn't work the best.
Yeah, it's like a game that got ported poorly, but this isn't a port.
Yeah.
This is just the game.
This is the only way to play the game legally.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does this happen?
Well, we'll tell you what happens, maybe in a little bit. But, oh wait, no, there's a time crunch. We don't have the option to wait till later and push it off. You gotta get... This discussion has to be finished now! So...
Okay, point being... Okay, and then you have your introduction. You get your starter. You get a little opening path, and you make your way to the academy. Unfortunately... Alright, maybe not unfortunately. Alright, problem's really going to start to show with the cutscene direction soon. Because it gives you like a kind of like a story segment where your first rival, Nimona, shows up. She teaches you how to battle. You go on a little adventure, catching a few common mon if you want, and you encounter your ride Pokemon. Miraidon/Koraidon. It saves your life from some Houndours. And it pretty much transitions to this tedious escort mission as you just like follow it around as it breaks rocks, walking down through a cave.
Hold on, Joe. Can you give me a second? I know we haven't taken any breaks in this conversation so far to go off on a side tangent. This isn't me new. But are you saying that at the very beginning of a Pokemon game, a legendary Pokemon saves you, and then you have a almost spiritual connection with them? Like right at the beginning of the game?
Yep.
Because I can't think of any other Pokemon games on the Switch that did that.
Yeah. I would say it's unoriginal, but, you know, Pokemon games really like their patterns.
Yeah. But I mean, none of the other mainline games have done that. This one specifically is copying that from Sword and Shield as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an inverse of Sun and Moon, where you are the one who saves the legendary Pokemon. But, yeah. They've been doing that quite a bit lately, of, having a weird try to connect. Although, here, at least, you know, you're gonna be seeing the legendary Pokemon for a while.
Yeah, like...
It's interesting, because I remember we were talking in casual conversation about how you feel like Sword and Shield was designed with what Scarlet and Violet have, which is riding the legendary Pokemon throughout the whole game. Like, it almost seems like there's a proto-idea of Sword and Shield where you would have been riding Zacian or Zamazenta in their armored form, and then eventually unlocking that once you hit that point in the story.
Yeah.
And then this is the culmination of that idea now, where you get to ride them on bike.
Yeah, and I still kind of have a feeling that there's some point in development where they were really thinking about doing that with Sword and Shield.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it feels like this is an obvious retread of that.
Which might also explain why the regions are relatively similar places.
Yeah. I mean, I think also just they've been using Europe for the last, Europe and the Americas have been what they've been doing since, Gen 5. After they got into Japan, they're just kind of hitting all the most popular tourist locations. America, France, Hawaii,
Britain,
and now Spain. So I'm sure we're gonna go probably to another European country sometime for the next generation.
My money's on Australia.
I was gonna say Germany, but alright. Germany or Italy. Or, who knows, we'll see who wins the World Cup. Wait.
Argentina?
Alright, they're going to Argentina next gen.
Alright, so, You run into Arvin, who at first just seems kind of like your standard, well, old school jerk rival.
Which we need more of this.
And then you get introduced to the Academy. And along the way, you'll notice a few problems with the cutscenes, where, like, in-engine animations are definitely improved from the travesty that was Sword and Shield, but there's still, like, especially early on, mostly early on, there's too many fades to black.
Oh, yeah, don't you love when you're watching something be animated and then they don't animate it?
Yeah. Like, that's the problem, is that a lot of the most antiquated things just kind of barrage you in this game early on.
Yeah. Well, alright, if you were to sum up, you know, everything with the introduction, that's the major problems. Slow start,
The weak
strange
presentation
sort of pacing.
just kind of
Yep.
truncates
Poor presentation.
the already slow beginning acts.
Yeah, so you would say that, you know, it starts off on a bad foot. But then, where did you go from there?
And
Did
once
you go,
the Academy lets you go, you get acclimated to all the main stories. The game opens up and lets you play.
But does it get good?
And I think once you're out and the game lets you enjoy it, I think the game is quite fun. Alright. So, basically once the game really lets you go, I think this is one of the more fun Pokemon games. It is also compounded by the fact that I think that the past several generations have been way too linear. Like, this is the first game that knows when to shut up for a bit.
Well, it shotguns you in the face with conversation, and then is like, alright, you heard enough, let's go.
Yeah, like the
It's your
game.
friend who hyperfixates on you for a while and just keeps talking and then apologizes afterwards for talking too much and is like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here, now you can hang out.
Yeah, like the game starts out like Sun and Moon or Black and White 1, and then just hits you. It's like, nope, now it's open. Gen 1 time.
Days, we're gonna talk about what the hell your problem is with black and white, and we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix your problems with black and white.
I'll fix you something. Anyway, okay. So you actually get a pretty liberating feeling of choice when it comes to what you want to do. Do you want to challenge gyms? Oh, you really shouldn't do a Team Star Raid first thing, because it's definitely not balanced around being your first challenge. Or you want to do the first Titan. Or you want to just explore and find the, and just, you know, find your way around the region. I do think that the way this game handles progression kind of stifles that feeling. In that, okay, I guess we get to one of the first kind of unique controversies with this game. The challenges don't scale with you.
So they let you go wherever you want.
But, like...
Which really just means that they're gonna let you go wherever you... Oh, you don't...
Yeah, you can go out of order, but the game really doesn't want you to.
Let's use a slightly similar example for 1 second. Breath of the Wild. I know everyone uses it as a comparison, but compared to what it sounds like this is, so are you saying that you can do all three of the main stories, but you really can't do them? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it's saying, like, the order in which you handle the gyms can't actually vary too much.
Oh, it's for the gyms. Okay, that's my bad for a second. So you can do the gyms in any order, but you can't really do them in any order.
Yeah, like, you're gonna have to do one of these two gyms first.
Okay, so yeah, unlike our pal Breath of the Wild, which, you know, I feel like I'm too hung up prefacing everything. Yeah, I got some issues with Breath of the Wild, but I think overall what it manages to do well is focusing on letting you go in whatever order you.
Yeah, it's like this game.
You can
Oh, sorry.
you can go wherever you want after its own somewhat lengthy introduction, and unlike what it sounds like in this game, you're not deterred from going anywhere. You're not. I mean, there may be little things you have to do, but for the most part, you can go to any of the 4 major challenges and tackle them and not have any, oops, you can't do this, you're not strong enough. Oop, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get your ass kicked, but for the most part, you can go in any of the 4 directions, and it seems like they're balanced well enough that there's not going to be one that, oh, I can't do this at all.
Yeah, because, okay, so the gym badges still do that thing where it's like, okay, now Pokemon of this level will listen to you. So you can't really go too far out of the beaten path.
Wait, they still have the gyms have different levels locked behind specific gym badges? It's not just based on the number?
It's based on the number, but okay. So, 2 gyms have Pokemon below level 20.
Yeah.
And in order to get Pokemon over level 20, you need badges so they'll listen to you. So before you do anything of a higher level, you're gonna have to do one of those places. Probably both.
See, the biggest problem this franchise ever introduced was... okay, that's hyperbolic. Not the biggest. But a real thing they shouldn't have done. Pokemon Generation. Why did they have to make it so cool and present us the idea of a universe where gyms scale to the level of the trainer? Why introduce that concept to everyone? Because it's such a good idea, and if you're not going to put it in the games, don't put it in the players' heads or your audience's heads that that's a thing that can happen. You put the coolest possible way to create an open world environment of, every gym leader having their own different, different parties for different levels based on how many gyms you have. Because, yeah, if you lived in the real Pokemon world, you might not live right in, Pallet Town. You might live on frickin' Saffron City, and your first gym might be Sabrina. So it might be nice to not have to get your ass beat by level 30 Hypnos or whatever she has.
Yeah. Like, of all times to just introduce... I'm not saying the wild Pokemon should scale.
Yeah. I mean, you can't control the wild. The wild is just what you're used to. Is just what it is. But gyms are challenges to teach the trainer how to grow and advance. And they should teach you by not having, a grade schooler going up against an army veteran. Well, he should be the 3rd gym, not the 1st gym.
Yeah. So...
But no, they shouldn't be having... Why... So yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily say... I mean, yeah, no, I should. I'm trying to be like, whoa, this is something from a non-canon piece of media, but it's like... But that doesn't excuse the fact that it's such a good idea, and it was an idea endorsed by the Pokemon Company.
An idea that people have brought up on many an occasion. Heck, there are interviews for this game asking about it, and they said no.
Yeah.
Like,
well, maybe Gen 10.
Like, let's say you do in fact handle gyms out of order. Let's say you pull some sneaky jank. You beat Iono first, her level 30 Pokemon. Well, those first 2 gyms still need to be done, but they're just going to be piss easy because you've already overcome a challenge harder than them.
Like, I understand it takes some work to build, 8 different Pokemon teams, but it really doesn't... I feel like you could get away with just having 4 different teams, because the difference between the 3rd and the 4th gym is not that crazy. Usually, I feel like you don't need 8 teams. I feel like you could get away with having 4 teams, and it'd be fine. The first 2 gyms, do it in 2s. Every 2 gyms you beat, they'll change the scaling up. And is that really that different than adding a post-game team in, which most Pokemon games already do now? You're already adding a new team with oftentimes changing in different Pokemon. Is it really that much to ask you to make a version of the team that's worse, you know?
Yeah, like
Just
you're
make
adjusting
your
a
base-
team that already exists. It's not that hard.
Just give... Look, I ain't a game developer, but if you just gave all 8 gym leaders one definitive team, and then you just made 3 or 4 versions where you scale back their power and give them a few less Pokemon and a few less good moves, it'd be good, and you lower the levels. It'd be good. Give them all their terrestrialized Pokemon, give them one other core Pokemon, and you can make the 8th gym leader the 2nd gym leader, and it would still work, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of gym leaders have kind of filler Pokemon in there as well. That are like, can you give an example of a team like that? Because I don't know, and I'm just thinking of examples from old Pokemon games. So you give an example of what I'm talking about, using the game you played.
Alright. Well, I don't remember most of their names, so...
Just name this team and the Pokemon and the guy and thing.
Alright, no, give me a sec.
Yeah, so like when I'm thinking, fine, I'll use an example from an older Pokemon game. You know, what's his face? Morty, from Gen 2. Like, does he need like 2 hunters and a Gengar? Or no, does he even have a Gengar? No, I think he had like 2 hunters and a Ghastly or something. It's like you could, if this was a system that had like balancing and was what we're talking about now, he'd only have one of those guys, or one of them would be a Gengar or something like that. Not a lot of Pokemon leaders have a lot of filler on their teams.
Yeah.
I think Bugsy had like 2 or 3 Pokemon, and one of them was just like a second form or something. You can thin out, you can trim some of these teams and make them better. I mean, to be fair, Gen 2 might be not the best example. They didn't have the best gyms either, but like,
Yeah. Alright.
Norman in 3, he didn't need 2 Slackings and a Vigoroth. You could have 1 Slacking and 1 Vigoroth. Just trim and adjust.
Yeah, trim and adjust. Like Gym 7, Tulip, the second gym leader, is expected to be the 7th. So you have Fur Giraffe, Gardevoir, Spartha, and Florges. Okay, you can just unevolve them to their intermediate forms, and bam, you have her as the 4th gym.
Yeah, take 1 or 2 of those guys off, like Florges, because Florges isn't new, and I assume not a core. Well, which one's the Terrestrialize?
Florges.
Oh. Alright, well. Keep Frigiraffe because it's new, keep Florges because it's Terrestrialize, and, lower them enough, or, just have Girafarig and whatever Florges' previous evolutions are. I make those, it's like the 1st or 2nd gym.
Yeah.
You can still do the Terrestrialize, it's a weaker one.
Like, point being, Pokemon lends itself pretty well to being able to just kind of scale things.
Yeah, it's almost like they have levels and numbers and
Yeah.
forms that are really easy to do this with. Yeah, I'm sure there'd be some balancing, but I don't know. This feels...
This is something you're capable of doing!
You do it almost every gen, because you have post-game challenges where, again, you add more Pokemon, you give them more complicated teams.
You wanna remember something they used to do? Remember the Versus Seeker?
Yeah, where they would give, like, every trainer, like, 3 or 4 different varieties of their team with slightly more powerful versions as you got further into the game.
Yeah, because this time you only need to do it for the gyms.
Yeah, it's like, why do they do this? Why can't they? I mean, look, we know why they can't do it, but unfortunately, we don't have time. This podcast has to get released at a specific release date, so we're gonna have to come back to this another time.
Point being,
But,
like, the biggest problem with the open world structure is that the game's challenges are not designed with open world structures in mind.
yeah. Even though the game's open world.
So the player
So you'd say that the gym challenges are somewhat lacking?
Like, honestly, I think the gyms are relatively well done. The problem almost entirely, alright, I do have one problem with the way the gym fights go, but largely the biggest problem here is that it is very hard to be at an appropriate level in comparison to the gyms.
Are you really gonna cock tease us like that? You know, give us a dramatic pause, and you're just not gonna say it? We're
Alright.
already here. Just say the thing real quick, and we can move on to the next topic.
It's hard
So-
to not be over-leveled or under-leveled.
Well, yeah. Especially with everyone's favorite equipment item.
The experience system just doesn't lend itself. Because Pokemon level up too fast, so you're never at one level of power for very long. So all the games...
So it hasn't improved from the previous generations?
Like, I'd say it's a little better because the level's skill higher on average. But now you're gonna have to deal with a problem where you don't know what point in the game what your strength level should be at. And it's not like you can level down. So if I over level, that fraction of the game is just less interesting. And you don't have to like grind for very long. But if my Pokemon get a few extra kills and they're a couple,
open world turn-based RPGs are tricky.
you have to design things, especially with Pokemon, because no matter what, the enemies and the players have the same tools at their disposal. It's not like
Players
it's not like
have a lot of advantages. Players have a lot of advantages now to really turn the tide. Whereas, yeah, like you're saying, more traditional turn-based RPGs, you know, you don't earn levels nearly as crazy, and
the enemies aren't playing by the same rules as you.
yeah, they can usually. A lot of the times, you're not always fighting to win. You're sometimes fighting just to sort of survive. There's really not much of a risk of ever dying in a Pokemon game, or even just, you know, fainting out unless you're doing a challenge mode, or as in like Dragon Quest or something more traditional like that.
Like
One dude hits you with the bad ability or something. It doesn't matter if you were trying to kill him. That might just change your whole like next hour. It's like, oh, I gotta go undo this effect, or they did something crazy, or he did a thing I can't even do.
Or the boss has a lot higher stats than you. You have to coordinate as a team on an asymmetrical balance. Like, the Titans kind of do that, but not really. Which I appreciate. I appreciate how the Titans work.
Are they evolution from Totem Pokemon and
They're effectively
various other...
They're effectively totem Pokemon.
Totem Pokemon, I think, were like a particularly fun boss battles, so I'm curious to hear how they handle the Titans here.
Yeah, I'd say it's fairly similar, except it's usually like a two-phase fight where it starts off one-on-one, and then it powers up, and Arvin steps in and 2v1.
2v1 you with the 2, or 2v1
With
he with the 2?
you with the 2. Sometimes the Pokemon will call allies.
Okay, so an extra hand in the Titans, whereas with the Totems, more often than not, you were the one at the disadvantage.
Like the
which
Titans,
made them really...
like the Titans still have like, you know, the stat buffs and stuff, and they have inflated HP stats. So it's a bit better designed. Huh?
As I'm saying, the Totem Pokemon had the better stats.
Yeah.
And then they would call in dudes too, which really made you have to strategize. I mean, you know, really the piece, I guess, is really a matter of perspective on it. I think I really liked how different the challenge was with the Totem Pokemon. I mean, I haven't played, but I don't know. The fact of halfway through you get an assist from another dude. That to me sounds a little lame, but maybe in practice it's a little better handled. Because to me that just sounds like it's making the fight easier instead of like ramping up the challenge.
Well, it's 2 separate fights.
Do they heal you between it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it's like 2 separate fights. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in practice. You can tell me how it's better
In practice.
But to me, I like the totem idea better.
I actually do like the totems. I'm just saying it's not much worse.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's still better than
Everything
it's still
else.
Something. I think that having those kinds of more optional difficulties, you can say what you want about Gen 7, Joe, and you have a lot you can say about Gen 7. Because you hate all Pokemon games. But I think that really figured out how to make like really solid boss battles, and they've been really kind of tweaking and evolving that ever since Gen 7. You know, one of the core. I don't think you can argue that it. One of the few things that's been a really positive strength over the last 5 years or so of Pokemon has been having good boss battles. Whether it's Legends Arceus having, those, new boss battle style encounters, having the totems, having raid Pokemon. I feel like ever since Gen 7, they've really figured out that they want to really take boss style encounters more seriously.
Yeah, and that's a move I actually appreciate.
Yeah, it really kind of takes one of the major complaints we've had, which is a little too easy about everything. And even if the whole game even if most of the game is fairly easy, at least having those few fights, very memorable fights. And I know that we talked about this when we were talking about our opinions, like leading up to the release, is that the gym trainer designs have been really memorable in the last couple of years or so. I feel like they made some really good gym leaders in Sword and Shield, and it seems like in this game as well.
Yeah.
At least it seemed like leading up to it. I don't know if this game has as many memorable gym leaders. You'll have to tell us about them.
I'd say this. Wait, what?
Joe has to know. I haven't played the game, so Joe has to answer this for me. I don't know more than 2 gym leaders in this game.
I'd say, probably, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a little less because, I had 3 years with Sword and Shield, and I just played this game once. But, no, they definitely still make an effort into making the gym leader, at least, I guess to say half. Like, the first couple gym leaders really don't stand out much. But, alright, like, one of the gym challenges for the water gym, you have to do, like, this auction to get, like, like an antique, and then he'll challenge you. And, his design is really weird, but I do like... They definitely built more of a character around the gym leaders, and that trend has still continued, I'd ultimately say.
Oh yeah, Joe. There's no point. You picked the perfect example, because it doesn't matter who the hell is the water gym leader in this game. They could be literally anyone. Nobody is following a peak gym leader design like the previous water gym leader and coming out on top.
Okay.
No, I still think I think that Sword and Shield has the best designed gym leader characters in the entire franchise. Outside of all of our issues with Sword and Shield, I think, they have some of the most memorable gym leaders. They're the only memorable parts of that whole story.
Yeah, to be fair.
Well, good memorable parts of that story.
Yeah.
I think that they did a bang-up job with the gym leader characterizations, and it is almost unfair to then compare Scarlet and Violet to them, because not only was that one of the few memorably good elements of the previous game, it was also just good in its own right.
My favorite gym leader is actually the normal type gym leader, Larry, because he's just like some salary man trying to do his job. And he's also an Elite Four member.
Picturing him in my head right now, and it's so funny.
Yeah. Like, I definitely think it's a mixed bag in terms of how memorable gym leaders are, but it's still like head and shoulders above most generations beforehand.
Yeah, so that's at least a good thing.
Yeah, like, even the most mid gym leaders in this generation are still far more memorable than most of what X and Y brought to the table.
Yeah.
But we've already talked about that. So, okay.
Let's talk about what this game has that other Pokemon games don't have. And let's move on to one of the other challenges.
Alright, so the Team Star portion of the game. Well, I'll kind of make it short and say that I'm not a big fan of one of the NPCs that follows you around. I'm not the biggest fan of Penny. I feel like her arc just kind of ended in a weird way. But as far as the man himself, Clive, who's totally not Professor Clavwell in a disguise, why would you think of such a thing? Trying to actively help the students of his academy by actively like fighting against Team Star and just trying to find out why they formed it. That makes him like the best professor almost by default. And yeah, you have a group of 5. Like, I don't really remember too much about like their names or anything, but I do like the characters of the Star leaders. And the idea that, you know, the game takes advantage of its auto battle feature. You bring 3 Pokemon, you let's go them out fighting trash mobs until you get to the big fight against the leader's team, and then the weird monster truck battle, which can actually be quite a challenge.
I have no opinion about this.
Yeah.
You just described it ever so eloquently.
Yeah, like I'd say out of the 3, I think the Team Stars probably has the best gameplay. Like, it feels like the biggest evolution, or just like the nicest novelty.
Would you say that? I mean, we'll get more into this once you describe the third part. But would you say that all 3, you know, portions of the story are made equally, or would you say that this one, or maybe the other one, are a little bit less fully baked than the other 2?
All right, so I can sum it up pretty well. I think the Titan storyline is the best by a pretty wide margin. Like, Arvin is almost uncontestably my favorite Pokemon character, and like the reason why he's after the Herba Mystica and his relationship with the professors is like actually kind of tugged at the heartstrings a bit. The gym challenge is very vanilla. Nemona's basically there to challenge you to fights and get you to become stronger. And Team Stars is, as I said, kind of going into the problems that the students of the academy deal with, and that the twist at the end that the secret shadowy leader was actually Penny the whole time. Oh shit, I just spoiled that, but you know, we kind of...
I want to put a deadpan spoiler warning at the beginning of this video.
Alright.
I mean, I figured we were gonna be getting into spoilers. I don't care.
Yeah, fair.
I don't care. You can say what you want. The game's been out for weeks. People already found out all this information a week beforehand when they were reading the leaks.
Alright, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So, like, I do think that I quite like the Team Star leaders, even if their names are escaping me. I'm pretty bad with names, and this game threw a lot of characters at you that you don't spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, I didn't remember their names either.
Yeah, I wonder why. But yeah, but after you're done with all 3 of the main stories, it does transition to like a last story, and this one like surrounds your legendary Pokemon and what happened to the professor. I'm not sure if I need to spoil what happens at the end, but I do kind of like the last part of the game, for the most part.
You can leave that up to a little bit of vagueness, even though you do the courtesy of leaving the ending for the people to go play on their own. But you know, you can say how you felt about it, which you did. So we're done with that, at least. Would you say overall, do you think the story, you know, comes together well? Do you think everything flows correctly? Do you think once you get out of that initial run, once you're in there,
I think that the writing's perfectly good. I do appreciate that the story doesn't really try to go out of its comfort zone. Well, it does go out of its comfort zone. As I said, it has some decent emotional moments. I feel like, alright, especially with Sword and Shield, you notice this. But really, like, it tells you the story it wants to tell and it actually shows you. And it doesn't try to set the stakes unnecessarily high.
Yeah, that's kind of funny to make a praise that the story actually tells the story correctly.
Yeah. It's like
hilarious when you say that out of context. Oh man, the story actually told its story. Like, the standards of the franchise have gotten so low.
I mean, they've never been high.
Yeah, remember the fact that we didn't once mention that neither one of us has played Pokemon Legends Arceus yet, so a lot of our context and criticisms are solely based on Sword and Shield being our previous games, so anybody coming into this thinking, why are they mentioning that? Well, we haven't played that game.
Okay, because I'm gonna be real here. It's like, I'd rather have a grounded story told well than an extravagant story told with little tact. Or just little skill. Like, I would like,
a good story is, told poorly might not be as good as a bad story told well.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm gonna put the spotlight on a different generation. I think Team Galactic is incredibly dumb and not even, like, funny bad.
Team Galactic is just lame.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the bad guy wants to reset the universe. Like, fucking why?
I mean, okay. That I'm not even that bothered by. It's just the fact that the Team Galactic grunts feel so... They feel even lamer than the Gen 2 Team Rocket grunts, who were meant to be, like, scrappy, the leftovers. The guys who didn't get the memo and are just kind of blindly following, Those guys were dumb, but they had a reason to be dumb. Like, there was a hyuk 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 guy in Gen 2, and I think there's a hyuk 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 guy in Team Galactic, and it's like, that's the level of seriousness we're taking here.
Yeah, it's like Team Star or Team Skull being, like, much like in the van Team Skull, the fact that they do just kind of suck, but, like, that's kind of the point, because there's a reason for them, and they're not just generic bad guys.
So you'd say that Team Stars is a little bit higher up. Would you say they're better than Team Yell?
Team Yell is profoundly low tier.
It looks like if Pierno from X and Y had just an army of them clones. That's what Team Yell is. The Pierno family.
Like, Team Yell might as well not exist.
Yeah, but who's gonna block you with invisible walls otherwise? Yeah. Who's gonna block your progress otherwise? You can't have that many construction signs, so it's better to just have a guy yell at you. Don't go this way. Oh, okay, I'm not gonna go this way.
Like, yeah, you could do the Team Flare or Plasma thing, where the average characters are really dumb and you just have, like, one really evil guy behind it. Or you could have the Team Skull or Stars method, where the team is out of sorts, and they feel more like a disorganized gang than, like, a world-ending syndicate. And Pokemon, as a franchise, is just more tonally prepared to deal with the latter than the former.
Yo, I got a hot one coming up right now. Can we just, like, stop with the evil team villains if you're not gonna do it right?
Yeah!
Can we find a different vessel for having, like, required opponents besides the evil villains?
Yeah!
Can't we, you just try... I know that they had, like, an evil faction. I think they had an evil faction in Legends Arceus, but I know that they were less emphasized, or I could be wrong about that. But I know that, like, the galactic base that you're in, I know that the Rowan's grandfather was a bad guy, but I don't think they had, like, grunts and mooks and all that stuff, and they were able to tell a coherent story. If you're not gonna, like, this is one of those artifacts of an old era, it feels like, but it's like, for what purpose? Everything Pokemon does is for merchandise, but if you're never gonna use the villain teams for anything, because they don't sell villain team merchandise, they don't use them in the anime anymore, because they're usually Team Rocket, So what's the point of having a villain team? Team Stars isn't gonna get used in anything else. They're not gonna be in the anime. They're not gonna. There might be a little merchandise, but not that much. Like, what's the point of them? What are they gonna do for the franchise? Okay, you can make one Pokemon TCG set themed around them. Is that worth it? You know? And I'm not even disparaging Stars on a concept. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
this is like a relic. What's the point of having evil villains?
the evil teams
You know,
just kind of lost their novelty a long
Like,
time ago.
you could just have, like, a couple
villain.
people. You could just have a villain and a couple of his dudes. You know, you could have just the generals. Like, I think it's, like, alright, if Team Flare was just the admins and Lysander, they'd probably be a stronger team because you wouldn't have all the dumbass Team Flare agents.
Yeah,
Because
like,
a lot of them, like,
that's,
you know,
that's
those
why-
older games obviously were more RPG-esque and, you know, needed to have people to stall you out so you had more battles before the boss. But in an open world setting like this, you don't have to have... Are there even, like, Team Stars, like, grunts that you verse?
Yeah, plenty.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, you don't... Do you really need them? Are they really necessary? You could just have a couple dudes.
Yeah,
And I mean, this isn't changing a whole lot of the story, but I think the structure of having an evil villain organization and just having, like, a gang.
yeah, like the grunts work better in, like, as said, like Team Skull, Rocket, and Stars.
Yeah.
Because they feel like more grounded organizations. It's the serious evil teams that feel like they're actually harmed by the grunts.
Yeah, because oftentimes they have so many of them, they just start writing bullshit dialogue for them. And, like,
It's a lot harder
obviously-
to take
well,
Team Galactic seriously when you start fighting these caricatures.
and it's not doesn't help that they got the coconut head cut.
Yeah. It's kind of the problem with a lot of those middle teams.
This is what I'm saying, like, Team Yell especially, it's like, they just were an obligation. There
Team
was
Yell
no
is
reason to have Team
ju-
Yell.
Just
They
the
were
grunt.
a corporate obligation. You're not seeing Team Yell TCG sets, you're not seeing Team Yell merchandise. They were vapor. No one will ever talk about Team... If they ever do something like how they did with Team Rainbow Rocket, you ain't seeing Team Yell coming back.
I'm trying to imagine Team Yell existing in any other context.
Just imagine Team Yell grunts next to Team Rocket grunts, and it's like, bro,
What do you do?
go back
Dude thinks
to
he's on the
fifth period.
team.
Dude thinks he's on the team. You put him in a lineup, and it's like, dude thinks he's on the team. No, team. Alright. Now we're just complaining about Sword and Shield again, but the point is that even if it sounds like this is an improvement, it really does seem like this is a fundamental one of those the franchise can't let go elements.
This tradition has outlived its novelty.
And like I'll give you a mulligan, Pokemon. If you can find a way to either make this work next gen or just get rid of it by Gen 10, I'll excuse it as growing pains of a new open world form. I think that's really where we're at, is that with a lot and you know, we're gonna talk more about this game, but I think with a lot of elements that it sounds like you've had some issues with is we're just going through growing pains.
Yeah.
Legends Arceus, that was a game that really inspired this. Yeah, they were being made concurrently, but a lot of things that were happening in Legends were never going to be affecting Scarlet and Violet because of the way they were developed.
And Legends is also
Concurrently.
just incredibly structurally different.
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of the things that it's like, yeah, they got some experimental work done with that, but that was never going to affect what happened here. So it's really, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, certain things that were said that were good about Legends are going to go into effect with Gen 10, but wasn't gonna affect this title.
Yeah.
So we can only wait for the future to see how both these games' receptions are going to affect Gen 10.
Yeah.
But
And to be fair, despite Sword and Shield selling a more billion units, they did actually learn their lessons. Well, at least partially their lessons from it, even if the games did well.
And that's why Scarlet and Violet sold 10 more billion units.
It's like, yeah, like I'm not going to get the next games if they don't fix the performance issues. But I'm pretty confident. I'm actually kind of confident that they will, because they've improved despite selling well to begin with last time.
Yeah, these definitely sound like they're better than Sword and Shield, and based on how much complaining about Sword and Shield we did,
Yeah,
probably complain about it Sword and Shield in this Scarlet and Violet retrospective more than talk about Scarlet and Violet. But that's just evidence that there's some improvement.
okay. I'm gonna make a little preemptive talk about like where I'm ranking this game in the grand scheme of things. Is that like I feel these games are a solid like 7 point something out of 10. Like I think
Depending on how much water there is in the DLC.
Like, I think these games are good if it ran better and dealt with its jank. Like, it would probably be at least in the running for best Pokemon game.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. Is that these would be the best Pokemon games if they were finished.
Yeah. It's like I can see these games being great.
And that's why I couldn't financially support it at the time, why I returned my copy. Bought it, returned it, didn't open it, because I'm like, I can't financially support a game that's this broken. At least in terms of mechanics and not in mechanics, in terms of like just technical performance and restrictions.
I guess this we're going back to
Until they can fix
no.
it. Well, you can go on with what you're saying.
Don't-
I'm just saying I can't support. Once this game is done, I will gladly buy it and enjoy it, but it's currently not done. We all know it's not done. We'll get into that later, or maybe we won't because we just don't have enough time to get it done.
Anyway, so I've tickled this subject enough as it is. Alright, my problem with the presentations in battle is that the animations are done in real time, but the text of when it tells you the effects of attacks are still the slowest goddamn thing in the universe.
Like Diamond and Pearl slow?
Like, alright, if you watch a battle in Scarlet and Violet, like, okay, one of my Pokemon on my team was Cloyster. Cloyster uses multi-hit moves. So, if I use Icicle Spear, it doesn't do all the hits sequentially. It has to do one at a time, every time, taking the damage and resetting the animation every time.
Oh, so it's like Coliseum and Stadium.
Yeah.
Jeez. It's gone backwards to that? Oh my god.
Well, that's the thing, is that I don't think they've really ever improved that, but the problem here is that the battles have become more seamless, but they still haven't outgrown the weird text having to explain every little thing. Like, it still has to tell you that the enemy received damage from their burn, even if the burns do damage. Or if a Pokemon raises their stats. There's like several seconds it has to show you each stat. Like, kind of a notorious case is when you're fighting the Titan Cloth, and when it uses the Herba Mystica to increase all of its stats, it has to tell you that its attack increased, its defense increased, its special attack increased, its special defense increased, its speed increased, pauses, and then it acts.
Optimization methods for this.
need to convey this stuff quicker. You can do it.
You could just have little symbols next to the character. Have it just...
Or just, give all the prompts at once.
Like, they want to make this... They want to explain it for children, but children don't have to learn in such a ham-fisted way. You're not making this game for literal preschoolers.
And, just make the text freaking skippable by mashing. It's like, you make the battle system just so much slower than it needs to be because just everything's just slow. I mean, you also can't turn off the animations anymore, so not ideal.
Taking everything away. They're taking everything away, Joe, including the one thing.
Yeah, as we said back in our episode about difficulty modes and player choice, they took away the set difficulty. Don't know why. That's how multiplayer works. Why would you not give us the option to do that here in the single player?
Even makes sense.
Like,
It's in the game.
It's already in the game. Why did you remove this setting? Like,
This is 1984.
No, this is 1996. No, because they had the option 1996. Like, yeah, this is a quality of life option you had since the start. Why did you go back? No, why did you go beneath the minimum here?
Who gets their rocks off by removing a feature that's been existing for almost 30 years that's already programmed in the game?
Yeah, it's already there. That's what bothers me. Why switch mode the default to begin with anyway?
Look, we're not getting into that, Joe. I understand you're a pro gamer and don't know what it's like to be a 6-year-old. To have that extra option to switch Pokemon to help them out.
Yeah, but why is set mode not here?
That's a different conversation, which I agree. Why is it not here?
Because it's there, just not in the single player. So traversing the world is actually pretty fun when you're out there. Hopefully when a Pokemon that's like 4 pixels wide doesn't ambush you. Which
Hey Joe, you wanna talk about that little Pokemon, the wild Pokemon, encountering them in the wild, and the trials and tribulations and missteps that can come from that?
okay.
Especially if you like certain kinds of Pokemon.
Okay, so the wild Pokemon just appear out in the wild now. Which, makes sense. Because the little problem is that a lot of Pokemon are really small, and you really can't see them coming. And
Now, Joe, I think we should preface for a second here, and we should talk about the wild. Which is just everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just one little isolated area.
The
To
whole
quote
world.
Cinematic Masterpiece Madagascar. The wild? You could actually go there? It's everywhere now. The wild's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just one little spot on the map. Meant to be there for marketing purposes, clearly a test demo that was unfinished. It's now the game.
Yeah, it's now the game. The wild area became the entire game like it should have been.
Like an actually finished video game. Which is a bit humorous that I'm saying that, because of the other elements that weren't finished. Like,
Yeah.
alright, we can only finish the map this time. We can't finish everything else. Alright, fine. We didn't finish the map last game. Let's finish the map today.
It feels almost satisfying to just explore the landscape. As you just find things and explore the region. I say almost because there are way too many Pokemon out in the wild, so moving is a lot more difficult than you'd think.
Oh no, I ran over that mouse with my bike and it shot me.
It stopped me. Yeah, you run over this mouse that you're not going to see.
And my dragon bike just was like, no, we gotta stop and fight.
We have to fight this mouse. And I feel bad for shiny enjoyers. Especially since this generation didn't stop, but rather doubled down on having some of the worst shiny designs ever.
Like,
Well,
the monkey's paw of people complaining that shinies were generated by, like, a particular set of values. And now that they do custom shinies that aren't based on particular values, I swear to God, they're probably worse now.
yeah.
Some of them are better. Most of them, I think, are actually worse than when they used to just be. Like, they weren't random, but they definitely, like, had. A lot of it was determined by pre-existing values.
Alright,
And I think most of them were better back then. And that's not nostalgia. It's just the way the colors work. When you only change one color on a Pokemon, just the one, and it's not even like the main color a lot. Now they only change like the secondary color.
the eyes, or, the tint's slightly different. Every shiny that looks barely different than the original design is a mark of shame. God, stop doing this! No one likes it!
Well, the Garchomp had to wait several generations to outgrow. Then they made him pink, which is better.
Like,
Weird, but it's better.
For Pokemon you advertise so much, why do you hate Gengar so much? God, it's just disappointing that there's so many shinies new to this game that just don't matter.
That is true. But you know what does matter? New Pokemon that we aren't talking about their shinies.
Yeah.
Because this game has new Pokemon.
Okay.
I've only seen like maybe 4 of them because everything else I've seen are the old Pokemon with cool badass new forms.
Okay, so if I were to say my piece on Scarlet and Violet pre-release, I was not a fan of a lot of the Pokemon they were showing off.
Yeah, they only show off like 5 of them and they all have the same face.
They're all like weird blobs.
Yep.
And yeah, I would definitely say this generation is more mixed. I probably would say it's one of my more like, it's probably in the middle of the pack overall. Like there are quite a few Pokemon just kind of like, yeah. Still not a fan of Lechonk and its evolution. I know that's sacrilege to many.
I wasn't a fan of it when I saw it.
I'm quite a fan of Low Kicks. Mousehold is like the best Gen 1-esque thing we've seen in a while.
Dude, I love it. It's so angry. It's got such a chaotic energy to it. Also, you did not just casually walk past the Common Rider Pokemon. It did not.
Oh, I did say
you were
Low
gonna
Kicks.
talk about. No, yeah, but you just talked about it in
Yeah.
like half a sentence and
Oh,
moved
fair.
on. You didn't talk about. It's the Common Rider Pokemon. It's got the circle with the line through it, like Kamen Rider flies. It's colored like Kamen Rider Black. It's shiny as Kamen Rider 01. It's literally
A Common Rider.
Kamen Rider. Unless you're on Bulbapedia, in which case you can't reference real world media.
Palmy just got to show him the stick. I already didn't like Palmy's design. And, man, it really just got 2 evolutions that just kind of look the same from each other.
Yeah, I don't know enough about a lot of the other Pokemon. So if I don't say anything, I just assume I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah. Like, it's a mixed bag. Like, I was just gonna say, apparently, like, Mousehold can't be stopped from evolving. Because, you know what its evolution is, right?
Just kids.
They have kids.
Oh my, ew, what?
the Everstone doesn't work. Because they're not evolving.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah.
He can't be saved.
Oh yeah. So
4-1
Fido.
out for him. 4-1 out for him. Man's never gonna get to start his, he's never gonna go across the oceans again. He's never gonna get to go out to a bar and stay out past 9 o'clock again. 4-1 out for the mouse.
4-1 out for the mouse. Yeah. Still not a fan of Fido or its evolution. Although I do know some people like it.
Yo, Tinkerton, I think is the name. What's the name of the pink guy?
Tinkaton.
Tinkerton is awesome.
Yeah. I love that weird Kirby enemy.
Got such a chaotic energy. It looks like just this very Nintendo character, which is weird because it's obviously Nintendo, but like it feels like it belongs in like it belongs like in Smash Brothers somewhere. Not like as a character, but like in a stage. It just deserves to be around other Nintendo characters.
Yeah.
Like a Kirby enemy, or hanging out in like Splatoon or something. Just make Tinkerton have its own game. I'd play a Tinkerton platformer.
Yeah, I quite like. Yeah, no, I like Tinkaton.
It lives for spite. It lives to spite. It only exists to kill Corbinites.
Yeah, like Armarouge and Ceruledge alongside Charcadet. I like that line.
Oh yeah, the Mavericks.
Yeah, the Mega Man, the Robot Masters. I still don't like Belly Bolt.
Yeah. Especially now that there's like better Pokemon. When I saw it, it was like one of the few, like pre-release, it was like one of like 10 Pokemon we actually saw. So it kind of was like okay by proxy of all the other ones being a severe disappointment. But now that we actually know other Pokemon, it's like, oh yeah, no, this one's going towards the bottom of the pack. Not terrible, but not the biggest fan.
I like Mabosstiff. It's kind of weird how we got 3 two-stage dogs that are all unrelated.
Spain known for its dogs?
I don't know.
More than other countries?
Yeah, we got Bread Dog, Normal Dog, and Dead Dog. Still don't like Raffi. We got Tumbleweed. Brambleghast.
I mean, you don't gotta go through every single non.
Yeah.
If there's ones you don't have much to say about.
Fair. A few highlights. Toad's Cruel. They made Tentacruel into a mushroom.
Oh, you're going into the Paradox forms? Well, why don't we first at least mention how badass Cyclizar, Koraidon, and Miraidon are?
No, that's not a Paradox Pokemon. That's just a normal Pokemon.
Toad's Cruel is a normal Pokemon?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said they made Parasect into something.
No, like it. No, it's it's still it's in the same family as Tentacruel. But much like Wiglet, it's treated as its own.
Ah, well, how? Alright, fine. We'll come back to the box Pokemon later. First, we'll talk about Tentacool. We'll talk about the old ones. So no, it's nostalgia for the old one.
They finally added the dolphin Pokemon I know people have been waiting for.
Isn't it, like, really bad?
Oh, it's notoriously overpowered.
No, I mean, like, visually. I don't care about how it functions.
It's just kind of blue dolphin. I don't like its superhero form. But
You can't just say, oh, it has a superhero form
Yeah.
and expect me to be curious now?
yeah, it's just a normal dolphin with the ability, like, it uses like a water type U-turn, and when it switches back in, it turns into like a superhero.
Alright, what are you talking about the next thing? I'll look this up.
Yeah, it's called Palafin. Alright, there's just like an engine Pokemon, which is the one that's also used for like the monster truck battles and the star raids. I'm a big fan of that. Cyclizar is probably my favorite Pokemon in this generation. I think it looks really
Palpid, oh my god, that's so cool. He looks so stupid, I love him. Bro, that's so awful, I love it. He got a stupid... He puts his hands on his side, that's so dumb, I love it. Greetings, children. I am Palafin. Have you eaten all of your vegetables today and stopped smoking? Join me and Mr. T. I love Palafin. That's amazing. Well, I love it conceptually. I think in essence it's a little too messy of a design and not enough contrast in the colors. But I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
I like its energy more than I like how it actually looks.
Yeah. Yeah. Cyclizar is probably my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon design-wise.
Yeah, man, they didn't have to change much from its original design in Crash Bandicoot 1 as weird lizard thing you jump on.
I like Dondozo, the giant catfish, and its counterpart Tatsugiri, which is just a living sushi. Not a fan of how this thing looks, but I do appreciate that it comes in multiple colors. Yeah, they finally started doing evolutions of old Pokemon again.
Yeah, I like a lot of the... Yeah, I haven't seen too many, like, the different evolutions and all that. But I do know that the Paradox Pokemon are pretty dope. Pretty rad. Most of them are pretty rad.
Baxcalibur is kind of disappointing to me. This kind of looks a little too lame for being the pseudo-legendary. I guess we gotta talk about Pokemon number 1000, everyone's favorite string cheese mascot, Golden Go. Like, this thing looks like it came from a Sega Dreamcast game that you forgot about until some YouTuber told you about it.
Just gonna have to go pull up the Pokedex while you continue to talk about things, because otherwise I don't know.
Yeah. And then we just have a large variety, like a few like weird looking legendaries, and a fair amount of just Paradox Pokemon, which are Pokemon from familiar species, but from the far past or distant future. Oh, and they finally gave Dunsparce and Girafarig evolutions. And
There's Pichu in this game? 10 out of 10, perfect. It's got Pichu.
And Primeape got an evolution. I know the Dunsparce has been rather controversial. We've already talked about Farigiraf in our pre-release discussion, basically saying I think it looks fine. I don't know why its name's still a palindrome, even though it only has one head now.
I don't know why its name is pronounced like that when it's not how it works.
I mean, I get it. Giraffes are cool. I like Girafarig.
Giraffes are cool, okay?
Yeah, so...
Wait, Joe, you weren't gonna tell me about the rock mushroom? Knackley? That thing's awesome. Garganackle is not that cool, but Knackley's cool.
Garganackle.
There's a rock mushroom. A salt rock mushroom.
Well, yeah, different strokes for different folks.
I mean, not like the best thing, but it's pretty alright. I think it's nifty. I just saw it right now.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's Breller and Rabska, which I don't think I ever saw, the dung beetles. Yeah. Like, I think this is a fairly decent mix. I think due to all the variants, I think this generation might be a bit carried by being kind of derivative. So many Pokemon are just related to past Pokemon. And unfortunately, those are also a lot of the stronger designs for me. Like,
Pokemon's been doing that kind of for a while now. It's having a few too many Pokemon related to the old ones just for marketing and
yeah, but I'm still gonna bitch about it.
Hey man, I'm gonna just say Stonejourner is the best Gen 9 Pokemon because I never saw it in Gen 8 once, so I just am gonna call it a Gen 9 Pokemon. It's like how Skarmory is a Gen 3 Pokemon.
Like, yeah, outside that context, like, Great Tusk is actually, like, a Pokemon I like quite a lot. But,
Oh, Great Tusk is awesome. I think it's really cool. Like I said, I think a lot of these Pokemon are really cool, the, like, new forms.
yeah, but
I want to make my whole team just basically all of those, which I think is actually a negative when you talk about this, that there's so many cool new designs, but they're all just cool new designs of already existing things.
yeah,
Great Tusk is cool, Sandy Shocks, Iron Treads, Iron Bundle, Iron Thorns. There's a lot of cool dudes like this.
yeah. But, yeah, in terms of new Pokemon, it's very mixed.
Yeah, I think not the strongest selection. Not terrible, but I think this has been a problem for a while now. The more forms and legacy Pokemon you have to give new content to, the less you really making each generation stand out. But I suppose if we're all complaining there's too many new Pokemon now, is it better to have less new Pokemon each time?
It's not like those
focus
past
on the forms?
few smaller generations have exactly been knockouts on average either.
It's like Pokemon's gotta figure out what it wants to do going forward. Especially now that we can't guarantee all the old Pokemon are gonna come back, so we have to kind of balance. Are we just gonna keep having older Pokemon with a few new Pokemon? Once again, I think we're still in a very transitional age with Pokemon.
Yeah. We're definitely heading into a new era.
And hopefully, by the time we get to Gen 10, they'll figure out what they want this franchise to be. What do you think we're going to be getting for the next generation, Joe? Where do you think we're going? Obviously, this is in very broad terms, but what do you think going forward they're going to learn from this game?
Okay. Like, I think for their own sake, they're going to try to make this game, the next game, more stable.
I'd hope so. Functional software tends to be better.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll be on another console. I really don't think we can get a third generation on the Switch.
No. I absolutely think that they're gonna... I feel like they're gonna lean more into the explorative nature.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's where the franchise needs to go. We've done the same old thing for so many years. And with everything else in the Pokemon franchise taking bold new directions, the spin-offs, the anime, even the trading card games, it's really time that the games... We took a few baby steps, but we really need to just break the mold with Gen 10. Sink or swim, you know? I mean, not sink or swim, because it doesn't matter if they change absolutely nothing and the games will sell, like, millions of copies, but... This is the point where Gen 9 is like... They're stepping over the ledge. Okay, maybe I shouldn't use that as an analogy. But, like, they're at a crossroads. They can either go and do something more consistent and safe, or they can take the changes they did in Gen 9 and go full steam ahead to changes in Gen 10. But if they don't make the jump now, then they'll miss the opportunity to really go, and we're gonna have to wait longer, and it's gonna be rough. So this is really the point where I think if they're gonna change things, they need to change it now.
Yeah.
What happens now at Gen 10 is going to dictate, really the next, 10 years of Pokemon. 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So,
Pokemon's adopting modern sensibilities. It's time to really embrace that all the way. You know?
yeah. I mean, Sword and Shield represented what we would get with, to a degree, with Legends and Scarlet and Violet, and while obviously all these games are, much improved over Sword and Shield, it's definitely clear that they left some kind of impact, and they had some kind of... A lot of the faults and a lot of the issues were dictated by what came before here.
Yeah.
But Gen 10's a fresh new landscape. We luckily have a while to worry about that. And hopefully they'll get their feet wet with some new ideas with DLC, which I think at this point we all know is happening.
Yeah.
It worked well last time for them and gave them a new SKU to sell for $90. Anything else you want to say about these games, Joe? Anything you want to really talk about? How do you really feel?
I think these games are a mixed bag, but I'm glad I have played them in the end. But I am feeling rather uneasy about the series. I mean, I guess I have been for the past while, so I guess that's nothing new.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my time with these games, but the next games need to address some stuff.
Yeah. We getting steadily better, and that's good. But it'd be nice if it could get really better.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we just had a game that was phenomenal. We're getting closer.
Yeah. Look, these games aren't a downgrade from the last generation. They're cooking something.
It'd be just nice if they were allowed to actually finish it and not take it out. Well, it's too... We all say that being raw is sometimes pretty good. But in this case, it's the kind of raw where it's you might get salmonella.
Yeah.
Or in the case of some people I know, you might actually get sick playing these games because of the motion... the motion that happens with the performance issues. Let's hope that things improve. Let's hope I can actually play these games. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up when I've actually played the games and I can actually talk about them. But I do know that very soon we'll be talking about a different open world game that came out not that long ago, which also released on Switch, which has you going around and fighting titans.
One which I haven't played.
So this will be a fun flipsy-do when we get around to that, but you'll just have to stick around and see.
Yeah. So, until next time, we'll see you back at the table.
Flip that table.